Yeah.
No doubt.
Memorial Park somewhere. Well, Benjamin.
We're back
Toronto.
home in Chabad Zuchen Kadeshim here in Montreal, after being by the Oyhel of the Rebbe, where I put in blessings for everyone. Yeah.
Even though you win.
And being in Crown Heights, 770 Eastern Parkway, Kan Siva Abayas Abracha, the place that brings warmth and light to the entire world. When you go into 770, you would think world headquarters of Chabad, world headquarters of the Lubavitcher Rebbe, of the Rebbe, think will be, the greatest palace on here, on earth. You walk in, but you see, it's not exactly,
Looking up on us.
it's not exactly the most beautiful place. The Rebbe once asked this. So the Rebbe gave a metaphor. Which is the most important room in the house? Huh? Shemelei, which is the most important room in the house?
Kitchen.
Kitchen. That's your wife to answer that.
Bathroom.
Okay. What's the most important? The furnace room. Because without the furnace room, you don't have heat, right? The furnace room heats up the.
That's only in the north where it's cold.
Exactly. Well,
In the south, you don't need a furnace room. They don't even have a furnace.
So they have an AC room. Same idea. It's same idea. It's not in other words, but here the metaphor is, the Chassidim, right, bring warmth to another, right? When you connect with a Chassid, you connect with warmth, right? So we're here to bring warmth to the world, the warm connection to God Almighty, the warm embrace of a mitzvah, right? So the furnace room is the place that brings warmth to the home, to the world, is the furnace room. What's the furnace room of the world? 770. Furnace rooms are not fancy. They don't look beautiful, but they're there to serve a greater purpose, right? So you can have a room. I'm sure we've all been in a home that, there's even a little gate up, right? And it looks so beautiful, but don't touch. Don't sit there. Take your shoes off. Don't make it dirty. Correct? Why? It's just for viewing. It's not for living. But a place that's for living, like if you got a bunch of kids and they're, your house can be upside down, right? Now, okay, you need the help. You got to clean up. Oh, absolutely. However, the idea that the house is upside down, that's a lived house, a place that's perfect, and there's a rope there, just look, don't touch, get your dirty shoes off. That white carpet is not living. That's not called life. So came from 770, place of life, the place that gives life, that gives warmth to the world. And of course, I was also there for.
That's true, especially on Shabbos.
Yeah. And I was there specifically for JLI, Jewish Learning Institute, important meetings, the executive, and new and good things to come. All right, folks. Welcome to Tanya Today. I'm Rabbi Ronnie Fine, coming to you from Chabad Zuchen Kadeshim, Montreal, Canada. It's a privilege, a pleasure to share with you the Tanya. We are speaking about the unity of God, two levels, a higher level, lower level of unity. The whole bottom line is that there's nothing else but God, the only reality. The only reality. So from here says the Alter Rebbe that there are some scholars, and when we say scholars, we mean Torah scholars, great Torah scholars, who made a big mistake. They erred. May God forgive them, says the Alter Rebbe. Right? Unwittingly, they made an error. They misinterpret the teachings of the Arizal. The Arizal was a 15th century, 16th century sage that lived in Tzfat. He is the father, the modern day father of Kabbalah. And everything based on Kabbalah, everything in Kabbalistic teachings is based from his works. And he speaks about the doctrine called Tzimtzum. Tzimtzum, we've heard the word before, means contraction. There, before God contracted upon his infinite being, all there was God's infinite light. Then he contracted upon it. Now the words in the Arizal is Siluk Atzmai. He removed himself. What does that mean? He removed himself. That's the words of the Arizal. He removed himself. So there are those who take that literally, and that's called Simsim Kipshutai, that God literally removed himself, right, from the creative process. He's above it, but not in it. Why? Because the infinite light, and now God removes himself to allow for finitude to come into being. Says the Alter Rebbe, that's a mistake. It doesn't mean literally he removed himself. Figuratively, he removed himself. What does it mean? He concealed himself. So is the infinite of God here? Yes, in a concealed way, not in an open, clear, palpable way. That is what the Alter Rebbe says. And now he goes and explains the mistake that they made. Because by taking this literally, that God removed himself, is giving the notion that God is beyond and kind of gazes from beyond, right? The world. He's in control. Of course, God's in control, right?
Right.
By the way, parenthetically, if the God in us is revealed, then we're in control of ourselves. When the God in us is not in control, and the animal soul is, how do you know when the animal soul is got you? Is when your phone is taking you over. That's one of the ways that we know. It's one of the ways we know. Other ways too, right? But that's just, one of the more recent ways. So says the Alter Rebbe that this is wrong because if you take it literally, that would suggest a corporeality to God. If you're taking literally, he removed himself. That means he was here, now he moved there. How can you say that? That's a ridiculous statement, right? That gives some sense of corporeality to God. That's the first reason why it can't be so. Second reason, he says, because we're believers, the sons of believers, and we know that God knows all created beings. How? How does God know me? How does he know you, Shimon Leib?
Because he's part of me, and I'm part of him.
Oh, exactly, because he's knowing himself. By knowing himself, he knows me. Exactly. Meaning, there's no added thing to God by when he knows. He knows that a miracle happened today. Shimon Leib stayed for Tanya.
Are you worldwide here?
You are worldwide now.
You are. You're now known in the world. What? And the fact that he knows that Shimon Leib is staying here for the class, the fact that I know this is something added to me. Because before that, I wasn't certain if he was going to be here, not going to be here, and the awareness of that adds to my awareness, right? But to God, it doesn't add to his awareness because he's knowing himself. Because if we were saying that God removed himself, that therefore his awareness would be that of something, of Shimon Levi being here, that would be something added to him. We can't say that. And these people who believe that God removed himself believe that there's nothing added to God. Before God created the world, there's only him. After he created the world, there's only but him. Right?
So we're not really here.
No.
It's really God that's here.
Right. It's really God that's here. And that's from God's perspective, right? From God's perspective. Our perspective, we understand that in our minds, but we don't experience it. We're not experiencing it now that we're part of God. We understand it intellectually, right? We could meditate upon it. We can have different metaphors, like the ray of light within the sun is not a ray of light. It's just part of the globe of the sun, right? So we're just a part in our source, 100%. So that's a second reason why you can't say. But further, the Zohar says very clearly that there's no place devoid of God, right? Of him. And who is him? In other words, you might say that the light of God is here, right? Like, for example, I'm here, but my light is now in Australia by, June, who's listening to this in Australia. And in David and Libo, and my light is in New York. But am I there? No. So you could say that maybe, God, he's removed, but his light is everywhere. Right? But the Zohar doesn't say that. The Zohar says that God is not the void. He himself, the essence of God, the Ein Sof of God, is not. Now, even though we can't grasp that God permeates this world, right? God permeates this world. We can't grasp that notion, truly, right? But the fact is that he is here in this world, hidden from us, hidden even in the spiritual worlds. That is the reality. In other words, and he's not changed by being here. As opposed to my soul and my body, right, is everywhere in my body. But the fact that it's in my body, it's changed by my body. Because when my body feels cold or feels a pain in my thumb, my soul is affected by that. But God isn't affected. So because he's not filling and limited and affected by filling the world, and therefore he is everywhere and not changed by anything. How is he there? In a way that's obscured from us. That even darkness does not obscure you, and the night you illuminate like day. How? We don't get that. We understand that day is illuminated and night is dark. We don't get how before God they're the same, there's no distinction. We don't grasp that, but that's the fact. Because nothing changes him or affects him in creation, that is. Not to say our mitzvahs do, right? But Davida, does God remove himself from something evil? He gives the vitality to evil through klipa, which comes from God. But in that sense, he's hidden. He's hidden right now forget about evil, just the reality of this, of creation. God is here. He, or Ein Sof. We're not talking about the light of God, right? We can understand, you can understand the light of God, but we're not saying the light of God. We're saying he himself. So is he found in evil? Yes. Very, very much covered over in Klippa. Because ultimately, he's the source of that of the Klippa, of the evil. Is that clear? Any questions? Shimalevi, you have any questions? You got it?
Yeah, I know.
So
So
we said three,
everywhere, and we're part of God.
right? But let's make sure we got the unique nuance over here. We're talking about when God creates the world. Before he created the world, there's only but him. Call it infinite light, if you will, right? From infinite light, how did this world come to be? God contracted upon that light. He removed himself. What does it mean he removed himself? So there are those great Jewish sages. One of them is the Vilna Gaon, Rabbi Eliyahu the Gra, right? The Gaon Rabbi Eliyahu, the Vilna Gaon. And the Alter Rebbe is saying he made a big mistake because he understood this teachings of the Arizal that God literally removed himself. In other words, not that God doesn't have an effect. He can have an effect. It's like, my arm reaches all the way to Australia. How so? Because I'm teaching right now, and my effect is in Australia. My effect is in New York. My effect is in is in Germany. How so? Because there's people watching me. But am I there? No. My effect is there. So, right now, use that metaphor, and you can say, God, he's beyond. His effect and his control, he's got it totally. Now, I don't have control, but I have an effect. God not only has an effect, but has control. But what of God is having the effect and control? Not God himself. He's beyond this world. His, his, he's got a right arm that can reach out very far. He controls from above, peering from above. Right? Is that clear? That's a mistake, we said, to look at God that way. Why is it a mistake? It's because, first of all, you're giving some sense of corporeality to God. That God is in one place, not another place? How can you say that? Secondly, that was the first argument he made, right? What was the second argument? That we believe that God, when he knows something, we're not adding to him. Because there, if he's beyond, you're adding to him the awareness of something that's going on beyond him. Not beyond his control, not beyond his light, not beyond his engagement, but beyond him himself, right? Clear? So that would mean that what he's aware now is something that's added to him because he's removed from it. And the third point that we made that is the desire says that God himself is found everywhere. Not the providence of God is found everywhere. Not God's control is found everywhere. God himself is found everywhere. Therefore, we have to conclude, well, we're not finished, by the way. Tomorrow we'll continue with some arguments, further taking this, right? But what we conclude as a result, did God remove himself literally from the world? No, figuratively. Simsum loy kipshute, not literally, not to be taken literally. So what does it mean? So what does it mean he removed? It means he concealed. So is the essence of God here? Absolutely. But concealed to such a way that we have no capability of perceiving and of being and knowing. We can understand it intellectually, but we're not going to experience it and truly know it. Is that clear now? Yeah? Hillel? Amram? Everybody out there? Everybody out there that's in Candyland?
So I have a question. You brought up that he concealed his that he created the infinite light.
Right.
So on the first day of creation, he said, "Let there be light." But the sun only came into existence on the fourth day of creation. So first of all, what happened between first of all, what kind of light are we talking about? And secondly, what happened
Well,
between the
obviously,
first
we're
and the
not
fourth
talking.
day?
Obviously, we're not talking about sunlight, right?
It wasn't sunlight.
Wasn't sunlight exactly?
You know, it was.
If you see Rashi, what is Rashi?
It was the light, the godly light.
An inherent light of creation that's a godly light, right? Which is a light of God Himself, as opposed to.
But man wasn't
light.
Created until the sixth day.
Therefore.
So, outside of the fact that that vegetation, trees.
Vegetation was only the third day that it sprouted.
Third day.
Yeah.
The only thing he did was he separated
the heavens and the earth
upper from the lower.
Right. Well, and he made the earth the sprout vegetation on the third day.
Yeah, but the light that he created was on the first day.
Yeah.
His light.
It's an infinite light. That's right. That he says.
It wasn't really light in the sense of illumination.
It wasn't sunlight.
It wasn't sunlight, obviously.
Right. It wasn't sunlight.
It wasn't a lamp that we see here.
Exactly. So it was a light of God, and therefore that's why Rashi says it's a light that's hidden. It's a light that's hidden and will be revealed in time to come of Mashiach. In other words, we will perceive the light of God in creation itself as opposed of a thing in creation that illuminates, because ultimately God is wants to be illuminated. He Himself is an infinite light, so that light will be revealed and it will illuminate, and it's a part of creation now. So that fits in exactly what we're talking about. It parallels it, at least, because that's a light that is today hidden. Is it here? Absolutely. Was it removed? No, it was hidden. When we say remove, we mean hidden as opposed to literally removed, as we just went through the arguments.
Like things are hidden when there's no light, like in the darkness.
Right, but
yesterday was a very
good.
Last night was a very cloudy night. I don't know if you saw that. It was a very cloudy night. So yesterday, I closed the lights in the house and went to bed. And the house was so dark, you couldn't see anything. It was like total darkness. I had to put a light on because I felt that it was too much darkness.
Mm-hmm.
And so everything was there in the house and so on, except it was hidden.
Right.
We didn't see it.
Yep.
And that's the same kind of light, knowing that God is there, that his
absolutely.
It's the same kind of idea that the godliness is there in the world. He created that, and that is the light.
Yep.
His light. But we didn't see it until the fourth day. And that's sunlight. That's only sunlight that we got then, right? That made light.
No, there was a light in creation before that. That is an essential part of creation that's beyond the sunlight.
Spiritual light wasn't the physical light.
No.
That's my.
No.